For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton, and this is a turning point. Today, a polling primer. Polls are snapshots of a river in motion. If the current is slow, the poll's accuracy may have some longevity. But if the river is flowing fast, the snapshot is old news almost immediately. So when things change rapidly, polls are more suited to being sepia-toned reminders in a scrapbook than as predictors of future behavior. That's why I'm not relying on the polls released immediately following the Republican love fest in Milwaukee that anointed Donald Trump, or the polls that followed the Joe Biden handoff to Kamala Harris. The river is simply flowing too fast for them to be accurate today. A little inside baseball here. I promise not to get too deep in the woods, but I spent a lot of years fielding and analyzing consumer research. In the long past days of landline telephones, we caught people at home and asked our questions and got out fast so as not to be a huge bother, considering the dinner hour is the researcher's golden hour. Then people got fed up with the ballooning numbers of uninvited and disruptive phone calls, and respondents got harder to find. Next, mobile phones took over. Initially, those numbers were unlisted, and then savvy consumers blocked unknown callers, and the universe of respondents shrunk dramatically. Statistically valid samples got harder and harder to produce, so we say let the buyer beware. The ongoing problem that polling companies and their university and media partners have is something known in the trade as qualified refusals. That term of art refers to people they'd like to include in their polling, either due to demographics, socioeconomics, or geography, but who have no interest in talking to pollsters. To boost their sample sizes to a level of statistical reliability, they have to extrapolate from the information they've gathered. Some, as a result of this kind of quantitative research, which is polling that uses large sample sizes to predict behavior, which is a dubious prospect to begin with, they become less reliable. You'll notice now that research companies, via their academic and media partners, talk a lot about focus groups. That's a type of qualitative research that distinguishes itself from big quantitative studies by gathering a small group, usually less than a dozen, and starting with broad questions. The moderators then drill down to specifics. Qualitative research yield opinions, but the small sample sizes are not statistically valid for purposes of prediction. And yes, my fellow nerds, this is a wildly simplified explanation, but give me a break. We're not doing open heart surgery here. One of my earliest colleagues in the field of music research, we used to ask audience members to pick the hits. Well, anyway, he saw an opportunity to expand his business and started what is now the biggest exit poll company in America. It went well at first, meaning that it was very accurate. And then exit polling lost qualified respondents too, and therefore credibility. About 2/3 of voters in 2020 didn't actually go to a polling place. They voted by mail in one form or another of absentee balloting. That reduced the statistical reliability of exit polls by, drumroll please, 2/3. Well, to make up for the loss of respondents, pollsters had to resort to the methodologies we questioned above, and the results were predictably skewed. Again, the telephone proved about as useful as smoke signals, and we were right back where we started. People liked voting by mail, and so it's reasonable to expect the samples in exit polling will be light again. But the ultimate exit poll is the counted vote, and while it does not have exit polling's immediacy, it's not that far behind in terms of time. Instead of having an accurate look at outcomes as enough people leave the booth, we're going to have to wait a few hours or perhaps even a few days. Finally, speaking of letting the buyer beware, I wish to caution you against the innocent-seeming push-pull. What is a push-pull? Well, it's the wolf in sheep's clothing of political marketing. The push-pull appears unbiased and to honestly seek the respondent's opinion, but it's about as innocent as a model on OnlyFans. Its true purpose is to lull the respondent into a sense of false security. According to Wikipedia, quote, a push-pull is an interactive marketing technique most commonly employed during political campaigning in which a person or organization attempts to manipulate or even alter prospective voters' views under the guise of conducting an opinion poll. Large numbers of voters are contacted with little effort made to collect and analyze their response data. Instead, the push-pull is a form of telemarketing based fact-based propaganda and rumor-mongering masquerading as an opinion poll. Push polls may rely on innuendo or information gleaned from opposition research on the political opponent of the interest behind the poll, unquote. Any way you shake it, we would be wise to take most polling with a grain of salt. For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton.
Progressive Voices' John Sinton has written a continuing series called A Turning Point that touches on politics, culture, and media. You can hear the short essays in the on-demand section of progressivevoices.com and on the PV app.
Did you know that you can listen to our station from anywhere with the free TuneIn radio app or on tunein.com? Enjoy our station and 100,000 other real radio stations anywhere you go. Follow the Progressive Voices Network on TuneIn to see what's live right now in your personalized feed. With all the best sports, news, talk, and music, TuneIn brings you live radio streaming from every continent. This is Real Radio.